Okay, let's unpack this. What if everything you thought about stress was, well, fundamentally wrong? What if it wasn't this dangerous enemy we should avoid at all costs, but actually something essential, something for a meaningful life, maybe even good for you?
That's a really provocative idea, isn't it? And it's right at the heart of the book we're looking at today.
Yeah. And our mission here is really to explore its core insights. How your mindset, how you connect with others, and finding meaning can totally transform how you experience stress. We want to pull out the most impactful nuggets for you.
And it was actually digging into this book, grappling with these big ideas that inspire our Mindful Moments YouTube channel.
That's right. It uses AI-assisted analysis to explore concepts like these, really helping you reflect and think critically.
It definitely challenges the usual way we think about stress. The main idea in the book is, well, the biggest factor isn't the stress itself, but how you think about it.
How you think about it.
Yeah. It makes this compelling case that just changing your perspective, your internal story, can change how you respond to, everything, daily hassles, big crises, all of it.
And this isn't just like positive thinking fluff. The book talks about the work of researcher Alia Crum. She found our physical reality is, well, way more subjective than we think.
Right. And her studies show she can actually influence what's happening physiologically in people's bodies just by changing how they perceive and experience. It's quite something.
That's where it gets really interesting, isn't it? The biology meeting the psychology.
Exactly. So Crum did this clever study with a mock job interview, which, let's face it, is stressful for pretty much everyone.
Definitely.
Participants watched one of two short videos, like 3 minutes long, before the interview. One video framed stress as enhancing good for performance, well-being, growth.
Okay.
The other framed it the usual way, debilitating, harmful to health, happiness, work.
And they could measure the difference.
Yeah.
In their bodies.
They could. They took saliva samples looking at two key stress hormones, cortisol and DHEA. Cortisol is the one we usually hear about. The negative side mobilizes energy but shuts down other stuff.
Right, the classic stress hormone.
But DHEA is different. It's a neurosteroid. It actually helps your brain build resilience, get stronger from stress, sort of like building muscle after lifting weights.
Wow, okay, so it's not just damaging.
No. And DHEA also seems to buffer some of cortisol's negative effects. It helps with things like wound repair, boosts the immune system.
So what did Crum find with the videos?
It was really eye-opening. Those 3 minutes, just framing stress differently, significantly changed the ratio of cortisol to DHEA released during that stressful interview.
So your biological response actually shifted based on your perception.
Precisely. It wasn't fixed. It changed based on what you believed stress was and did.
So it's more than just putting on a brave face. There's a real measurable physical change happening.
Definitely. And the book is careful to say this isn't just a placebo effect.
How is it different?
Well, a placebo often works when you don't have a strong pre-existing belief. Like taking a sugar pill you're told is medicine. But with stress, everyone already has a theory, right? A viewpoint. That belief system is always active. Every time you feel pressure and think this is stressful, that underlying belief shapes your experience and, as the research shows, your actual biology.
What's more fundamental?
Right. The book argues it's a core belief system, a mindset, a theory about how the world works that influences everything, thoughts, emotions, goals, even long-term health. It goes way beyond a simple placebo.
And these mindsets have these huge ripple effects over time. The book gives this almost unbelievable example. How your beliefs about getting older affect your health and how long you live.
Yeah, that section is remarkable. It talks about studies like the Baltimore Longitudinal Study of Aging. They found this incredibly consistent, dramatic link.
Okay.
Having a positive view of aging isn't just nice. It's linked to living, on average, almost 8 years longer than people with negative views.
8 years, just from your attitude.
That's huge. It is. And it predicts other things, too. People in that study with the most positive views, they had an 80% lower risk of heart attack compared to those with the most negative views.
80% lower risk?
Yeah.
Just from their perspective on aging. That feels revolutionary.
It really shows the physical power of these deep-seated mindsets. The book also talks about how it affects recovery.
From illness or accidents?
Yeah. People who see aging positively, associating it with wisdom, capability, they recover significantly faster and more fully from major health problems, things like regaining walking speed, balance. It was measured objectively.
Wow. And it even affects the will to live.
It seems to. Studies mentioned found negative views in middle age predicted a lower will to live later on, feeling life was empty.
That's profound.
And in one experiment, older adults were subliminally shown negative aging words like senile or decrepit. They were then less likely to agree to life-prolonging medical treatments.
So the mindset was influencing that fundamental drive to survive, even unconsciously.
It really illustrates how these fundamental beliefs aren't just thoughts. They actively shape our behavior, our physical resilience, our whole life trajectory. It powerfully supports the book's main theme.
Okay, but I can hear someone thinking, sure, but maybe people with positive views just have easier lives. Less stress, less hardship.
That's a really common thought, and the book addresses it directly. Crum and her colleagues looked into this. They found only a surprisingly weak link between someone's stress mindset and how many stressful things had actually happened to them.
So having a positive view doesn't mean you've had a stress-free life.
Not at all. And the crucial finding was this. Whether someone had high or low levels of stress in their life, holding a more positive view of stress was still linked to better outcomes.
So it helps, regardless of your circumstances.
Exactly. It's not about avoiding difficulty, it's about the lens you use when difficulty shows up.
Yeah.
Which makes these ideas much more accessible, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, shifting gears a bit. The book also talks about another side to our stress response, beyond just fight or flight.
Right. It introduces the tend and befriend response. For ages, stress research focused on fight or flight, getting ready to confront or run away, self-preservation. But the book highlights this parallel instinct. Under stress, we also have a drive to connect with and protect our group, our tribe.
Tend and befriend.
Yeah.
So when we're stressed, part of us wants to connect, to be more trusting, generous, even take risks for others.
That's the idea. And research actually backs it up, even though it seems counterintuitive. Studies in the book showed that a stronger cardiovascular stress response, heart-pounding, blood pumping, was actually linked to being more trustworthy and altruistic in social games.
Really? So that physical arousal wasn't just about fighting or fleeing.
It seems it was also connected to a drive for social connection and support. It sort of flips the script on stress, making us purely selfish or isolated.
Yeah, it really does.
There's that Wharton study example, too. They made people feel really pressed for time, classic stressor, right? But instead of hoarding their time, feeling stressed actually made people more generous with offering their time to help others.
That's surprising. What about the Oregon study with money?
Another fascinating one. People got $100, asked if they wanted to donate some to a food bank. Then in another scenario, money was just taken from them and donated without their full consent.
Okay.
And brain scans showed that both times choosing to give and having it given for them, the brain's reward centers lit up. The act of giving itself felt good.
Even when it wasn't entirely voluntary.
Right. The book argues this drive to help others under stress is this crucial, often missed resource for resilience. It's basically wired into us.
The book tells this story about Riva and Lakshman on a flight. His oxygen machine kept breaking.
Oh, yeah, that sounds incredibly stressful. Riva having to keep climbing over seats in pain to fix it in the dark. A nightmare.
But the point the book makes is how they shifted their focus. Instead of just dwelling on the broken machine they couldn't fix.
They focused on the meaning, right? Why they were taking the stressful trip to see their daughter and new grandchild.
Exactly. Focusing on that bigger connection, that purpose, helped them reframe the whole awful experience. It gave them strength to endure it better than if they'd only focused on the machine.
It's a great example of choosing which aspect of the stress response to lean into the despair or the connection and meaning. You can't always control the stressor, but you can choose your focus.
And that links perfectly to another big theme, finding meaning through stress. The book suggests a stress-free life isn't necessarily a meaningful one.
Precisely. Stress itself isn't inherently meaningful, but it often pushes us to find or reaffirm meaning. Maybe not right in the heat of the moment, but in the bigger picture.
Like with bigger-than-self goals.
Yeah, the idea that shifting from proving yourself to contributing to something larger changes everything. Jennifer Crocker's story, the academic who burned out, she found new energy when she reframed her work as contributing knowledge for others, not just personal achievement.
And that role redesign exercise, where people rewrite their job descriptions.
Right. Not changing the tasks, just framing them differently. How does this help others? How does it serve a bigger mission? The research showed that simple reframing reliably boosted meaning and job satisfaction.
Even when the job itself stayed the same.
It taps into that focus on helping others, which connects to what the book calls altruism born of suffering.
Meaning that tough times can actually spark a need to help.
Yeah, it suggests that facing difficulty often ignites this basic human impulse to reach out. Think about the stories after tragedies like the Boston bombing or 9/11, or programs like Inmates Caring for Hospice Patients.
People in immense pain themselves, driven to ease others' suffering.
Exactly. And the book explains that active helping, especially when you're struggling too, is a powerful antidote to the defeat response, that feeling of helplessness that stress can trigger.
And there's evidence for this.
Oh, yeah. Studies show helping others when you're distressed reduces helplessness, boosts hope, increases courage. It even lights up the same brain reward pathways as receiving support. Volunteering's even used effectively for people with PTSD.
That's incredible. Then there's the idea of common humanity.
Hugely important. Recognizing that struggling, pain, challenges, they're just part of being human, not some personal failing.
Because feeling isolated in your stress is really damaging, right?
Terribly so. The book notes it makes depression and unhealthy coping, like avoidance, much more likely. But understanding that suffering is shared, that fosters self-compassion, empathy, encourages you to seek support, deepens connection.
Like that making the invisible visible exercise.
Yeah.
Anonymously sharing struggles.
Yeah, simple but powerful. You write down something personal you struggle with that others might not see, share it anonymously.
Right.
Reading those struggles makes you realize, okay, I'm not alone. It really builds that sense of shared humanity.
And the position burnout studies showed this in practice.
Absolutely. Doctors in high-stress jobs often feel totally alone, but when they met regularly, shared experiences openly, practiced mindfulness together, burnout and isolation plummeted. Satisfaction and connection went way up. Just feeling less alone validated their struggles and helped them cope.
There was also that story about Julie fostering a baby. The stress was overwhelming her.
Right, the uncertainty of the adoption process. She was considering antidepressants.
But her mother helped her reframe it.
Yes, using ideas from this book. Instead of just saying, oh, it's so stressful, they deliberately focused on the why, their love for the baby, the meaning behind creating this family.
Shifting perspective.
Exactly. It helped Julie and her husband see the challenges not just as roadblocks, but as part of the meaningful path they chose. That empowered them to find a support group, which helped so much she felt she didn't need the medication anymore. It really shows how focusing on meaning, especially with support, can change the whole stress experience.
So beyond meaning, the book also frames stress as a pathway to growth, which ties into the whole growth mindset idea.
Perfectly. Seeing challenges, setbacks, even anxiety, not as proof you're failing, but as normal parts of learning, as signals to use your resources.
Like Anita's story, the grad student with imposter syndrome.
Fantastic example. Terrified of her qualifying exam. But she applied these principles, reframed her anxiety not as I'm not ready, but as energy she could use.
And meetings with her committee.
She reframed them not as tests, but as chances to learn from experts. By changing that mindset, she wasn't paralyzed by fear of looking stupid. She could actually listen, learn, improve.
And she ended up doing great on the exam.
Her best presentation ever. She practiced, felt genuinely excited by the end, and used the nerves as fuel on the day. She directly credited the mindset shift. And the book mentions research on social anxiety too, right? Using the Trier social stress test.
Yeah, that notoriously stressful test. Impromptu speech, mental math, stern judges. Nightmare fuel for someone with social anxiety.
But when they taught participants to view their anxiety as a resource, their body getting ready to perform, they actually did better and felt less distressed.
Same physical arousal, different interpretation, different outcome.
Exactly. Which leads right into post-traumatic growth.
The idea that trauma, while causing harm, can also lead to growth.
Right. The book emphasizes that people very often report both. The struggle itself can spark positive psychological changes. Finding some benefit or meaning, even just writing about how life is better because of the challenge. It doesn't erase the pain, but it lessens the long-term negative impact.
And then there's vicarious growth. You can catch resilience.
Kind of amazing, isn't it? Just witnessing or hearing about someone else's struggle, coping, and growth can actually boost your own resilience and ability to find meaning.
Like the story of Suma Ladanik after 9/11.
Yes. Years later, a reporter saw her enduring pain, but also incredible strength and new purpose. And this time, hearing Sue's story filled the reporter with hope, not dread. Witnessing growth can be contagious.
And finally, that Soul Train program, training for half marathons together.
Such a great example. Young people, adult mentors, shared struggle, mutual support, aiming for something huge together.
They encourage vulnerability, sharing challenges, asking for support.
Yeah, creating that deep common humanity. The coaches don't pretend it's easy. They say the growth comes from embracing the struggle, but doing it together. making the impossible possible through connection.
Okay, so let's quickly pull the main threads together from this really transformative book. Your mindset fundamentally changes your physical and emotional experience of stress.
Right. And connecting with others, especially helping others when you're stressed, is this powerful resilience resource we all have.
And stress itself, while hard, can actually be a catalyst, a pathway to finding deeper meaning and achieving real personal growth.
And the book really stresses, no pun intended, that these aren't superpowers. They're innate human capacities, strategies available to everyone. The goal isn't eliminating stress, it's changing your relationship to it, learning to integrate it, maybe even embrace it.
This kind of deep dive into powerful ideas is exactly what we aim for on our Mindful Moments YouTube channel. We use AI-assisted analysis to help you explore further, reflect, think critically about concepts like these. You should definitely check it out.
And please do explore our podcasts as well. We cover all sorts of fascinating topics, uncovering connections and insights you might not find elsewhere.
If this conversation resonated with you, please subscribe so you don't miss future explorations. Maybe share this with someone who could benefit from rethinking stress.
And if you want to go deeper into these ideas yourself, consider getting the book we discussed. There's a link in the description.
We'll leave you with this thought from the book. The next time you face a stressful challenge, how will you choose to see it?
Will it be something just happening to you, a threat to get through? Or maybe, just maybe, could you see it as something happening for you? An invitation to connect, to find meaning, and ultimately to grow.